iZotope Ozone 10 is here. Is it worth the upgrade? Let's take a look. Hello everyone, welcome back to MixPlus TV. Hope you're having a great day. Before we start, please check the info box down below for my mixing courses on Pro Mix Academy, free plugin special discounts and offers, and of course, if you really want to learn how to mix and master professionally, click the join button down here, become a MixPlus TV member, access the already big and always growing library of full mixing courses start to finish on many different genres, mastering courses, and a lot more. And if the videos are helping you, please consider using the super thanks, the new feature down here. Let's get to the video. All right, Ozone 10 is here. I have the advanced version, so I don't know which modules are also present on the standard. I use the Ozone modules very often. I never use the all-in-one plugin, but the modules are very useful. So let's take a look at what's new in version number 10. The main new features/changes are the stabilizer module, the new impact module, a new soft clipper in the maximizer, and a new recovery size in the imager module. We now also have codecs preview. By clicking here, you can preview your files, how it's gonna sound when converted either to AAC or MP3. These are the bit rates, and you can solo the artifacts or the possible artifacts when you convert it. You can load a reference file, multiple files, to compare them with your master or the track you're working on in real time. They also reprogrammed and improved the master assistant, which I personally don't use, but some people out there might find it useful. So let's start with the stabilizer. iZotope describes this as an intelligent mastering EQ, dynamic mastering EQ, similar to other plugins that we've seen before, for example, Smart EQ or GNOZZI'S. And it's very simple, it's straightforward to use. We have the profiles here on the right, country, EDM, pop, rock, hip hop, the amount slider here, the speed and the smoothing slider, and also a tame transient button, because this dynamic EQ also works on the micro dynamic of your mix. And sometimes, especially when you push the amount all the way up, transients can get a little crunchy, a little too sharp, and they put this tame transient option here. You also have 3 sliders for each band, high, mid, and low. So you have the overall amount, and then you can adjust the 3 individual bands, the intensity of them. We're gonna use a song by Misho. It's called Magic, that I mastered some time ago, but I'm not playing the master, I'm playing the mix.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be, 'cause I believe you're magic. I remember when I could see you smiling with your teeth. You weren't in your head yet. It was only Simpsons on TV. I know sometimes it gets a little ugly. I know sometimes you still.
Okay, first impression is fairly natural, and actually, because I mastered this mix, he did at least one thing that I did in the master, which give a little more brightness and a little more mid-presence, especially for the vocals. You notice that when I push the amount up to 100, which most likely is gonna be too much for many cases, the sharpness of the transient gets a little too much. But I love how increasing the smoothing is almost like decreasing the number of bands that this dynamic automatic EQ has. And you see the curves are a lot broader and not as detailed, so that probably means there's also less artifacts.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be, 'cause I believe you're magic. I remember when I could see.
The speed is self-explanatory, increases or decreases the speed of the action of this automatic EQ. And when I click tame transient, you hear kind of tightens a little bit the dynamics. Now, so far I've been using the all-purpose. I'm gonna try to use rock, and I only use shape. We also have a cut function. So let's try just a different profile.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be, 'cause I believe you're magic. I remember when.
So the profile selected changes everything. You heard the difference between all-purpose and rock, how much more bright and present in the mid-range was with the rock profile. Let me mess a little bit with the 3 bands at the bottom. So you can see you can adjust the intensity for each individual range, which is pretty cool. Then we have a cut algorithm here. Let's see what it does.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be. 'Cause I believe you're
In this case, not much, because it was a good mix actually, and you can see it kind of dynamically removes what he detects as being resonances. Maybe we can try a different mix and see if it catches more.
Gangsta, the flow, pico, light of the show. Baby, all die represent shady. Yeah!
No, I'm messing with the flow, with the pen I take your soul. Yeah. 93 double O, if you ain't know, now you know. Real shit, no joke, time to fuck up the show.
Okay, you can see it kind of tends to pull down the 6K range here and the really, really low range, probably 40 and below, which to be honest, I don't agree with, because this, especially this kind of mix, you kind of need that presence and all the low end that you can fit in the track. So I wouldn't trust this blindly, but let me try another mix just out of curiosity.
Skill es la G-O-double-D to the E-S-S. I play my enemies like a game of chess. Esto es pa' quien siente el boom latiendo en el chest. Desde la mitad y está dividida se pex, yeah, yo. Mi boca no la callan, merezco estar aquí. Vengo por toda la mesa con mi killer bee. No sabe.
You know, it can be useful, especially it seems to detect a lot of energy in the high and high mid range. Now, these are all good mixes. This is the excess that the plugin automatically detects. You still need to use your ears because it basically just detects where more energy is in a given range. If you use the master assistant, probably it will compare to another master and just, you know, remove things accordingly to match the other master. But again, it's a good module. It sounds very natural. I mean, if you like the other plugins alike, this is definitely, you know, a good addition to have in Ozone, especially if you have the previous version, the 9, and just upgrade to this and you have a good new module. Let's go to Impact, which is the other new module. By the way, each module has a set of presets right here. If you click these 3 lines, this, I gotta be honest, because I briefly tried the new version before doing the video, is the one module that leaves me a little bit perplexed. The sheets describes it as it controls the microdynamic of a mix. We have 4 bands. Well, we have 4 bands if you want 4 bands, because otherwise you can reduce into 1 or 2. Let's put 4, and as other modules on Ozone, you have the learn button. So we can go back to our mix that we were using earlier.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in that.
Okay, you play the track when in learn mode and he sets the crossover points for you. Whether or not you want to leave them there or adjust them, it's up to you. We have 4 sliders, and as you can see, it either expands above 0 or compress below 0, the microdynamic of a given band. So let's start with the mid-range, which is the easier to hear.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be. 'Cause I believe you're magic.
Again, it kind of sounds very natural, especially if we compress more than enhancing. It sounds more like a transient designer when we boost or expand. We also have an auto function to compensate for the level difference, so let's engage that.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be. 'Cause I believe you're magic. I remember when.
And we also have a delta function to isolate the processing, so to hear only what the impact module is doing.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic.
We can also sync the processing to the session tempo. Now, this is not the session of this mix, so it's not in time, but you can.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be. 'Cause I
You can see the kick drum, especially I'm boosting the low end, so it's easier to see. If I put it here, you can see every time the kick hits, the event is longer with the envelope at 1/4.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in.
Okay, and it's shorter as I shorten the length. You can link bands if you want a master and the other to follow. The delta we saw, you can also use it in mid-side, and you have different processing. Let's say, for example, let's put, yeah, the sides is a 0, so let's just use the mid here for the kick.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be.
It's a fine balance to use or not to use the auto function, I think. Something you'll have to experiment with. I think it's pretty cool. Let's go to what's new on the maximizer, which is the soft clip, which is the first thing that I tried when I tried the new Ozone 10. And I want to say it's cool, and I actually compared it with other clippers, and I think the clipper kind of came out on top. I compared with Hstlr, I compared it with another couple of clippers that I like, and it actually distorts a lot less. There's a lot less aliasing, audible artifacts, and a lot less distortion. Unfortunately, the way they did the soft clip is that when you increase the soft clip slider, you increase the overall level of the track. So the material is being pushed into the clipper, as opposed to what I would like and how I like all my clippers, lowering a threshold and have the clipper clipping. This is kind of a pet peeve, and I really hope Ozone will give this option. Just like for the limiter, you pull down the threshold as opposed to increase the level into the clipper to compare the action of the clipper alone with other clippers that operate the way I like them. I need to engage the gain match function, otherwise it just increases the level. So let me show you.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna.
Okay, it's not a big deal. I just wish at some point they will do an update and give me a threshold. But anyway, we have 3 settings: light, medium, and heavy clipping. I will start with medium because it's pretty audible. This clipper, although it comes on top compared to other clippers, it definitely has a color. Is it pleasant? Because they managed to keep the bad distortion at bay somehow. So it's a really nice type of saturation, but is a pretty colored type of clipping, as opposed to one of my other clippers, for example, this one here, which is pretty transparent. Now, it comes before the limiter. So let me show you. If I limit like a couple of dBs here.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic.
Okay, I'm limiting almost 3 dB, you can see here at the top. If I engage the soft clip,
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be, 'cause I believe you're.
okay, you see the gain reduction that the limiter has to apply is less because the material gets clipped before hitting it. So it kind of takes the load off the limiter, which is something we as master engineers, we do all the time. We do multi-stage limiting between clipping converters, clipping other things, not to give the final brick wall limiter like 4 dB to limit, right? Again, you can hear it, you can hear the color already. Let me gain match and go heavy and just hear it in action all the way.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic.
Okay, it gets crunchy at higher settings like this. Let's try medium.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be.
Light is my favorite for sure. It's got the least amount of distortion and still shaves off some peaks and reduces the load for the limiter. Let me put it in transient, which is my favorite algorithm here.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic, and I don't wanna go.
So remember, this is a soft clip. Even in hard mode, in heavy mode, it's called heavy mode and not hard. Different from, like, for example, this other clipper which has soft, smooth, and hard. Hard clipping has a specific sound. This is still a soft clipper. And then we also have our transient emphasis. which was present in the previous version, which is not active when the transient algorithm is selected, but modern, classic, and all the others are. It can increase the perception of transient, but at the same time, it can also increase a little bit of distortion, so pay attention with it. And then everything else, the stereo independence, transient sustain is as it was before. I really like the maximizer module on Ozone, always have. The clipper is a cool new addition. Please give me a threshold. Imager, this is the same as before. The graphic has changed a little bit for the better, I want to say. We have still a multiband. We have still the learn function as for all the multiband processors here. We still have the stereo eyes, and now we have recover sides. What it does is basically, let's say you have a mix that is like too wide, okay, a little washy. If you reduce the sides, you reduce the information, the level of the information that is on the side. You hear them less. Whatever element, like guitars, synths, background vocals, if they're too spread apart and the mix lacks punch in the mid channel, right? If you reduce the sides, you reduce the level of those elements. This one compensates and basically places these stereo elements, the elements that were in the stereo field, and when you reduce the width, so let's say like you do this, right? And you activate this, then you compensate and it brings them down in the middle. So you basically recover the sides, as in you reduce the stereo image if something is too wide and too washy, which happens more often than you would think, especially when people send me mixes to master. But now you're not gonna lose these sides elements, you're gonna bring them here. Okay, let's try here, even if this mix doesn't need to be monoed in the mid, this is the range that is easier to hear.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic.
I'm gonna solo it actually, so you can hear what's on the sides.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic.
You hear the guitars. If I narrow this band, we kind of lose the guitars, right?
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic. And I don't wanna go where you don't wanna be, 'cause I believe you're magic.
Okay, it's pretty clear. Now you can hear very well that those guitars are not lost anymore. They just moved more in the center.
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in
If we unsolo this and we just use more conservative settings,
I believe in you, you believe in me. I believe in magic.
again, this mix doesn't need to be narrowed, but you get the point. And of course, we have the usual expansion in the stereo field.
I believe in you.
Okay, so pretty cool. A new addition to also the already pretty great imager module on Ozone 10. Again, if you use the Master Assistant, they redesigned that module as well. And the tonal balance as well has some improvements, slightly new and improved GUI, which I really, really like. And I think this is it for the video. The links to Ozone 10 upgrades and discounts are gonna be in the info box down below. I hope the video was useful. If you liked it, please don't forget to leave a like, comment down below. Let me know if you're gonna upgrade. Let me know what are your favorite modules, what you use them for. And if the videos are helping you, please consider using the super thanks and support the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up.